blonde and timid and quiet, as her sister was dark and bold and noisy, loved the chase, and delighted in watching the rebuilding as much as the young Marquis. Over the trees of the Holm Wood, Hester could see the chimneys of the Dower House. An even deeper scowl marred her features. "The pests are going to London for another season," she said.
"Oh, the Bentleys," said Betty. "How old is Fanny now?"
28, and still unwed. Frederica's 23, answered Hester. They wanted to use the Westerby townhouse, but I said we needed it for ourselves, and that instead they could have old Lady Comfrey's place in Huggett Square. Lady Harriet Comfrey had been Lady Jane's godmother, and had left Jane her house and her considerable fortune, which Hester and Betty had in turn inherited, along with the Westerby and Welbourne fortunes, although most of it would go to the present Marquis on his 21st birthday. "They sourly accepted," continued Hester, "because those two would rather die than spend a penny of their own. I would throw them out, you know, but Mother always said they weren't so bad and made me promise to look after them. But I tell you this," she lowered her voice and leaned toward Betty, "I often wonder if they had anything to do with the deaths of Jane and Charles. You remember, too, that little Simon was supposed to be along with them that day." Betty put her hands up to her face and stared at her sister in horror.
"How could you think of such a thing?" she asked.
"Easily and often," said Hester. "Charles could drive to an inch. The coach was smashed to matchwood, and no one was on the scene to bear witness. But every time I see that Bentley woman, i' faith, I cannot help wondering."
"Oh, Hester, 'tis so unladylike to think thus," said Betty, "and we owe it to Jane's name to become ladies."
"You are a lady, Betty," grinned Hester, "but not I. I am too much like Mother." Betty gave a reluctant smile, for indeed Hester did look very much like their late mother, with her tall, thin body, her flashing eyes, and her sharp movements. Hester was 21, and Betty 19. Their late stepsister Jane and their governess Miss Armitage, who was now engaged in teaching the young Marquis, had tried to give Hester some town bronze, but at its best it was only a thin veneer. "Why don't we go to town for a season?" cried Hester, beginning to pace up and down. "Think on't. We can go to all the balls and parties. I ain't much, but you could get yourself a duke, Betty, you're that pretty."
"We cannot go," exclaimed Betty. "We have no one to chaperone us."
"We're rich heiresses," said Hester stoutly, "and Bella will chaperone us."
"Bella? But she's old and rambles so. And besides, she is only the maid."
"Jane considered Bella chaperone enough for that, she told me, and what was good enough for Jane should be good enough for us. Oh, do let's go, Betty, if only to put a spoke in the wheel of that there Fanny Bentley."
"But what of Simon?"
"He'll love it. We can take him to see the animals on Exeter Change, and to the waxworks at Madame Tussaud's, and so many places." Betty sighed in resignation. She realized Hester's mind was made up, and that nothing she, Betty, could say would change it. But as the door opened and the stout figure of the maid, Bella, came bustling in, leading Simon by the hand, Betty made a bid to find an ally.
"Bella," she cried, "Hester wants us to go to London for the season."
"Odd so?" said the maid. "Now, Lady Hester, what do you want to go to such a rumty old place as London for? Think of the bad effect on my little lord." Then Betty spoiled it all by adding with a laugh,
"And Hester wanted you to be our chaperone, Bella. Imagine how exhausting. All those routs and balls and parties."
A reminiscent gleam crossed Bella's eyes, and she dropped Simon's chubby hand. "Well, now," she said, "that do bring to mind the times I went with Lady Jane. Ah, the jewels and the dresses, and Lady Jane like the fairy she was." In silence, the three women looked at little Simon, who so resembled his late mother,